lonesome land, empty sky. Journey west, child pride.
Hello, everybody. My name is Erin McGrane, and I serve on the board for the Heartland Song Network. We empower the creation of the song through education, collaboration, and mentorship. It's my great pleasure to interview our Artist of the Month for September of 2022, Joy Zimmerman. Welcome, Joy.
Thank you so much, Erin. It's a delight to be here.
I'm just have been so looking forward to this conversation. We were going to have it anyway, but now we get to have it with our wonderful members of our Heartland Song Network. So
Exactly.
yeah, well, I really want to just jump right into it because you have so much going on. You are such a dynamic performer, and you've really been active lately. So it's a terrific honor for us to have you with us for the month of September, and I'm looking forward to highlighting all the great things you're doing. And we'll talk a little bit later about some things you've got coming up this month. But I wanted to just start at the very beginning and have you tell us a little bit about where you're from and how you got started in music, because I know you didn't start till a little bit later in your life, right?
Yeah. Well, I didn't start on guitar or singing or songwriting until later, but I started playing violin when I was 5. The summer before kindergarten, my mom decided that I would take either piano or violin, and so I chose violin. And so I started Suzuki method and just played just a ton through college, basically. And then I decided to pursue social work. But I lived in St. Louis and then lived in Minnesota and DC, and I didn't end up in Kansas City till about 27 years ago, which is quite a while now. But I had never sung a solo, and I had never played guitar or written a song, and so just jumped into that when my older son was in elementary school and he was taking lessons, and I picked him up one day and I thought, that would have been a lot of fun to play guitar. And I thought, wait a minute, you're not too old to learn something new. So that's when it all began, really.
So you're from the Heartland. Are you from St. Louis? Is that where you're originally from? Okay, great.
St. Louis.
And what brought you here to Kansas City?
My former husband's job. And so we had a baby and decided to move back to the Midwest. We were living in DC at the time.
Oh, yeah.
And so moved back here.
Well, lucky us that we have you here. Oh, that's fantastic. And I know that you've had a lot of different kinds of musical experience. So what music were you playing? Was it classical when you started on violin?
Yeah, pretty much strictly classical. I didn't even have a vision for really how to use violin other than that. And I loved classical music, but I didn't love it enough to pursue it. So it was in all kinds of orchestras and symphonies and things. But again, just didn't know how to use violin any other way, really. I mean, there was the Electric Light Orchestra, but there really weren't, I don't think, as many bands that involved, cellos and strings and violins as there are now. So it took a while for me to even sort of envision that. And so a couple of friends and I decided to form a band, and I just played the sort of the violin parts and sang harmony. And I thought my voice was a harmony voice. And I love to sing harmony, but I thought that was my lane. And it really wasn't until I started playing guitar and playing chords. And then I thought, oh, I can make up, sort of my own melodies, and then challenged myself to write a song. And then I wanted to sing the song, so I needed to take voice lessons. So sort of one thing kind of led to another. That was about 15 years ago that I started all that.
That's amazing. So what kind of music were you listening to while you were taking classical violin lessons and studying, growing up to be a social worker and stuff? What was the music that you were listening to that you loved?
Oh, a huge range. So I loved Earth, Wind and Fire, the Beatles, the Police, the Clash, Nirvana. I mean, I was singing in choirs, like I said. I mean, just all kinds of music, gospel music. So a wide range of music has influenced me.
Yeah, I can hear that in your music because it's really, I think you write beautiful melodies, and that's something I think comes from having listened and studied beautiful melodies, and certainly coming from a classical background, all about great melodies, and then just some of the pop sensibilities that you have. I definitely hear some of those classic influences. You are also a really, I think, eloquent lyricist. So I'd like you to talk a little bit about, because I can see the transition from violin to guitar, maybe to piano, to where you start to stretch out on other instruments as you begin to write and think, I'd like to hear that sound in my music and let me try this. But writing lyrics is its own path. So talk a little bit about, had you written poetry before, or were you interested in creative writing?
No, not so much. I love to read, but again, I was, pursuing social work, and I was a mom, and I just, my life was really full, and I never really took the time to write much, not even to journal too much. But I think I was always a pretty deep thinker. I mean, we didn't grow up with much money, but we lived in an area where there are a lot of wealthy people. I went to church in the inner core. My brother was biracial. I mean, I just had like a lot of different things, I think, as a kid, and I was really sensitive, that I was kind of weaving together. So I think that that maybe was a predisposition to writing, I think. And so once I started, I thought, okay, what are the key things that I want to say? And so that flowed a little more naturally than I think it might have. Maybe again, because of the things that I had mulled over in my life, and maybe being a social worker too. Think about, just all the stories I'd heard over time of people's grief and my own, and resilience and celebration, and just all of those themes, I think, I was trying to pull from when I first started writing.
It was interesting, something you just said, that as you were beginning to experiment with playing guitar and writing your own songs, that you began to write your own thoughts and feelings. I think that happened to me as well. Like, I had studied flute, more of a classical instrument, and played in band all those years, and then met some young people that were in a band, and that just blew my mind, because I said, well, what's the music you're playing? And they said, well, we're writing it. And I'm like, you're writing your own music? Like I don't know why that hadn't occurred to me in that way. And I suppose because I had been playing flute and piano and in a more structured, formal kind of setting. But the freedom that the first time I stood on stage and sang my own words and played my own music, and I don't suppose that song was very good. I don't remember, but oh, I guess I do remember. It wasn't very good, but it was more about that experience. Did you have that sort of feeling? Talk about what that feels like, or what that felt like to you.
Yeah, it was just wild, because I thought it was this, I mean, it is magical, right? Anytime
It
we're
is.
creative in any way, it's magical, right? But I thought that there was some special key that I, just didn't possess, and then, okay, I'm like, okay, I know, several chords now, and I want to do this. And I had a job at Crittenden. It was one of my first jobs involving social work and music, really. And I wasn't really coordinating the singing and the strumming yet, but I wanted to be that person. And I remember it was on a break at that job. It was a really challenging job. And I thought, okay, if I were a little girl, if I could go back and tell myself, what I would want her to know, that it was going to be okay. And so I was writing this song, and I thought, oh, I'm actually writing a song. And so again, maybe not my best song ever, but once I realized that I could put those things together, I thought, this is a sweet spot in my life. Like, this brings together all the strands, and that I could never have imagined. It used to be really difficult to listen to people play live that, I had a hard time with, and I didn't know why. I would listen to music that I loved, and I thought there was just this longing in me, I think, to have a piece of that, and I didn't understand why that was. And so here I was, doing this job, and I thought, oh, let me see what I can do. And all of a sudden, it was open to me, just even a little piece of it. So yeah, just the magic was sort of beginning this reinvention, I guess. Yeah.
Well, this leads us right into, I want to talk about, so you won an award. It was the Artist is Activist Award from the Mid-America Arts Alliance and the Inner Urban Art House, to curate a portrait exhibit based on one of your songs, which the title of which is Women Who Walked on Water. I want to hear about that particular project, and then I'd love to dig in a little bit more about the Artist as Activist. So tell us about this project and what this was, and then let's talk a little bit about your role as artists as activists? Because you've really been coming forward lately.
Yeah. So my most recent album, I wrote a song called Women Who Walked on Water. And I thought, let me pull together a lot of the women who have inspired me over time. So some are historical, some are present day. And so that was one of the songs on my album. And was working with Carrie Estrin as a consultant. And she was saying, you have to find ways to give your songs legs and staying power and use them in different ways. And I thought, okay, what could I do with this song? And so I love the Inner Urban Art House, right? It's such a fabulous place. And I had done several concerts there before. And I thought, I wonder if there's a way that we could work together on a portrait exhibit based on those women in the song. And then, involve visual artists. So it was during Their Art exhibit that they have every year. So in March during Women's History Month. And so I contacted them and ended up securing that grant. And I was able to distribute money, which was so fun, right? To give out money to artists. And so the different female identified artists then chose which of the women they wanted to depict. And we had this wide range. I think we had 14 portraits, 14 of the 17 in the song.
Wow.
And so then I worked on, so each of the women, the female identified artists, they did more research on the women, and they ended up being even more inspired by the lives of the women that they were depicting. And so we posted some of that on my website. We put a lot of that up and did a video, and ended up doing a concert called Women Who Walked on Water, telling stories and poems and things about those women. And so it just sort of, snowballed. And it was a good launching pad for, I think, being even more active, with my music.
That sounds like that would be a fantastic annual event. I would think that would be a really cool thing to do each year with different women, picking who their mentors and inspirations were. Who were some of those women that really inspired you and maybe mentored you?
Let's see. In the song, I've got Eleanor Roosevelt, Dolores Huerta, Jane Goodall, Aretha Franklin, Rachel Carson, and just in various ways. And it was fun to pick a variety of women. But yeah, every year, I mean, my goodness, the list goes on. And for each of us, we have our own list of inspiring people. And then that night, that concert was a benefit for Together Women Rise, which supports women's projects in developing countries. And so we partnered with them as well. And so we've done that, I think, 3 years in a row. So yeah, I think there are a lot of things that could come from this. So I'm already starting to brainstorm for next year.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. And what about you personally? Did you have any mentors or special teachers that were very influential or encouraging to you?
Well, I would say in terms of music, my first violin teacher, unfortunately, she moved when I was in 4th grade, but those early years were really shaped by her. And my first voice teacher lives in Kansas City, my first and only, Riva Capillari. And so that was just a wild thing. I mean, I really encourage people to take voice lessons, whether it's for your speaking voice or your singing voice. So many people, fortunately, were told when they were kids, to be quiet or not sing loud, or
you can't carry a tune in a bucket, or people toss off these things, and it can be very hurtful and really hold people back from exploring their voices.
Absolutely. And we assume that only the experts can, share their voice when we really need everyone's voices. So she was instrumental for me, just the whole psychology of singing and, and being a perfectionist and being uncertain about my voice, even though I knew I had a lot to say, but she just helped so much with the mechanics of it, but also the psychology of it. So Riva Capillari. And then one of my guitar teachers is Cindy Egger, so a friend. And so she was instrumental for me as well.
No pun intended.
Yes, exactly.
I think that's very encouraging, though, for young people to know that, you have such a lovely voice. It's such a warm and welcoming voice. You really welcome people into your songs and into that space that you're singing from. But I think it's very encouraging to know that even people that make it seem so easy often struggle getting there. And I think I misunderstood as a kid that if I wasn't good at it right away, that I wasn't good at it, that I needed to keep trying and learn. And especially I think with singing, people sort of assume you have a great voice or you don't, but there's so much that can be done with the voice. So I love that message. And I think that's really important for young people, or it doesn't have to be young people young in their art, perhaps, or inexperienced in their art, as you were
Yes.
not necessarily a child, but certainly were new to that part of your artistic expression, right?
Yes.
And do you have an opportunity to mentor now?
Oh, that's a good question. I was a board member of the Kansas City Women's Music Network for a while, and also Women on the Rise that existed for a while in Kansas City. So yeah, just wanted to share, resources with, especially, female artists. And so I don't know. I hope that my story is one of inspiration. And I don't know specific young musicians that I've mentored, but hopefully in a general way, maybe that's something to explore. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I wanted to go back a little bit to talking about artists as activists. So you also just released a new single that's just so powerful and terrific. I'd love you to talk about that a little bit. Tell us about it. And then what has the response been? Because I know this is brand new, so it's only been out, just a few weeks. So tell us about Hear Our Voices.
All right. So I wrote a song called Hear Our Voices in the wake of the overturning of Roe versus Wade, and decided that I wanted to try to figure out a way to write about this most complex subject. I mean, I can hardly imagine a more difficult topic. And I felt like our voices were being silenced. And I was trying to figure out how to tell the stories of some of the women, imagining, what some of their stories were, and encouraging us to really listen and trust the women and the girls. And so, I wrote Hear Our Voices, and then thought, what if I encouraged wonderful, talented friends to sing with me? And Erin graciously lent her voice to the song, and you can hear her beautiful voice. And Danielle Anderson and Ebony Fondren sing as well, which I think not only does it add to the beauty, but I think it adds to the meaning to hear, various voices. And then we are doing harmony, echoes, and I was hoping the effect would be engendering empathy, and then also just the idea of the multitude of us that do have our stories. And this has been an issue. Pro-choice abortion has been surrounded in shame. And so it reminds me, having been a woman who came out later in life, how I stand on the shoulders of so many men and women who have come out over the years, and thought, so many more of us are telling stories or wanting to hear stories. So that was the hope of the song. So released it the day after the vote in Kansas that protected reproductive rights. And I was aware that this was a big leap for me. I think in general in my life, something that has held me back is that I wanted to be liked, and I've wanted to, even though, I was steeped in social justice as a kid, and as a young adult, and have taken stances on things and all. It's also a little different when you're putting your art out there as well. So it kind of had a lot of challenges in that for me, but it felt so important to do it. And the response has been really terrific. I've had so many, I would say maybe 100 at least, individual messages sent to me. Wow. To say thank you for the song. The hope was that it might be played on folk radio. I don't know that it will be played as much as we would hope that it would be played. I think it is, the first verse out of the gate is talking about rape. And so that's pretty heavy. But I'm glad it's out in the world.
Have you received feedback that the topic is just too hot for folk radio?
Yeah, from a couple of DJs, yeah, had mentioned that, yeah, that they weren't sure that their audiences were, maybe quite ready for that. And who knows what honestly, the larger context is at people's different stations. They personally may want to play a song, but maybe
Right.
the larger context is such, whether it's their station or their community, I don't know. But again, I think when you're knowing that you have something important to say, the result is not necessarily, it's not quantifiable. It's not, necessarily the number of plays or what. It's you don't know necessarily the ripple effect of it.
And you've made a beautiful video to go along with it, which I think also very gently and poignantly helps tell that story, which I think the whole song is a very gentle and poignant telling of personal stories. And I think you did it beautifully. So where can people see that video? Is that still out there somewhere that people can
Yeah.
watch it online,
Mm-hmm,
even if they can't
absolutely.
hear it on the radio?
Yeah. So it's on YouTube. Hear Our Voices, Joy Zimmerman, or my website, joyzimmermanmusic.com.
Okay.
And I've put it up on Facebook, but probably my website and YouTube are the best places to
We'll
find
make
it.
sure we list that at the end of the interview so that people can find you, because it's worth watching. It's just such a beautiful thing. So in general, how much do your personal views affect the music that you write? Is it something that, by that I mean by your personal views, I mean your political views, your stance as an activist, your stance as a queer woman in today's world? I mean, how much does that affect what you're writing about?
I think a lot. I think that I also like to have songs that entertain people and that are just fun and funny, for sure. But I think a lot of times have wanted to put in themes of resilience and empowerment and include other people in the stories, and invite other people. I feel like those are, and develop community maybe around a song, because we certainly do that right when we perform live, but find a way to invite people into your music. So some of those beliefs or things that are important to me, I try to put in songs, some of my own stories or some things that I've heard other people say that have been helpful to them down this road, because by now there have been a lot of stories and a lot of bumps in the road, a lot of challenges and a lot of victories and all that. I just try to throw a lot of that in the songs.
You always have an undercurrent of joy, though, which I love, and it appeals to me so much that even when you're grappling with some difficult situations, I feel like you come from a point of love and joy, which is not easy. It's just not always easy, especially in today's world. So let's talk a little bit about the songwriting itself. So you've been songwriting 15 years
Ish.
ish.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about your songwriting process, and has it changed, and how do you write now?
Oh boy, I think my entrances to the songwriting process are different, but generally speaking, I think it works this way, where I have an idea that I'd like to write about something, and then I think about that for a while, and I think what would the hook be? What is the main point of the song? And then maybe at the same time, I would get the melody that would go with that hook, or the rhythm, and so that would be the jumping off point. And then there's this old brain dump of lyrics, ideas, and all that. And then I try to, sort of sing some of those. And then it's this master puzzle, right, of like figuring out how all the pieces fit. Since I started to play guitar around the same time that I started to write music, I didn't have, like a lot of options, to use. And so I would learn a new chord or strumming pattern and think, okay, I'm going to try that and use that in my songs. And so I think over time, a friend of mine, when I first told him that I was writing songs, he said, most people, their songs sound a lot alike. And so right then and there, I thought, I'm really going to try to make my songs sound different. So I'll try a new technique, or I don't play mandolin that much, but I'll pick up a mandolin and see if there's a song that lives in there, or ukulele or something that, is not my primary. Sometimes I think I can get tripped up by chords and things too when you don't have a tremendous facility. So I'll just sing into my phone, recorder, because sometimes if you just focus on the melody, so different entrance points, or I'll write a little note as we do on our napkins, or for a lyric idea, and then then you cull through those, and then that'll be the seed of the song. But generally it starts the first way that I mentioned.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I know exactly what you mean. I have little scraps of paper that fall out of my phone and out of my purse and on the backs of things and in my calendar. It's just, when you get an idea, you kind of have to grab it. I have learned that over the years, that if you don't get on it, it will go away.
Yes.
Do you know Howard Iceberg?
Yes.
Yes. So he has a great story that he's told often about how he doesn't feel that he's really a songwriter. He's just a conduit. He says, I just collect all the songs that everybody's too busy to write, and knocks on your door and you don't answer, or you go, I'll come back later, and you come back later and they're gone. He said, they've come over to my house and I just collect them all and write them all down and record them. And then, I think that's kind of a wonderful image of that. But I do think that is true. Like when you get a little inspiration, follow that seed.
Yes.
And that's part of the fun of it, I think, is that discovery. Like, where did that come from? The idea to be able to make something from nothing is I don't know that I'll ever be tired of that.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So let's see, so you are actually currently working on some new music, right? We'll talk about, when we get to the end, we'll go over what you've got available for sale now and where people can find you and all that kind of stuff. But I know you're currently writing some new material for the next album. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, let's see. So yeah, well, like Friday, you were talking about when you get a little seed and you need to follow it. I was supposed to be packing for a trip, and I came across a little piece of paper, and so I sat down and wrote a song. It's called "Keeping Vigil," and so there's a little bit about climate change in that song, and so I think this album is going to be things I need to say. And so I had released a song called "We'll Hold the Light" at the beginning of the pandemic for medical workers and the trauma that they faced. My wife is an anesthesiologist down at Truman, and so certainly experienced trauma so much over the years. And then obviously, faced with COVID, there was so much more. So I think that song we may remix and put that on the album. So I think between that and Hear Our Voices, and so I think this will be a lot. I'm hoping to write a little bit more deeply songs of consequence. And again, I hope there's some fun things on there as well. But feeling like I'm figuring out more how to be my authentic self. And so hopefully there'll be some authenticity on this album.
Yeah. Well, I find working with you very inspiring. It helps me speak out more. I think you and I are a little bit older than some maybe young kids starting out in the business. And I think the messaging has changed over the years, and women are being encouraged to speak out so much more than they were probably when we were younger. Mm-hmm. And I find that very inspiring. So I think your music is certainly teaching me and inspiring me. So I hope you continue. Can't wait to hear what the new album is going to be about. Mm-hmm. And then also I wanted to know, is there anybody today that you're listening to, like a current artist that you find really inspiring for yourself? Anybody you're listening to?
I would say probably the first person that pops in my head is Brandi Carlile.
I wondered, because I feel like that would be someone that would really speak to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I followed her for so long and saw her twice at the Beaumont Club and a long time ago. And in fact, both of those shows, she throws out pics, and I actually caught two of them at two different shows. It was really weird. So But yeah, I think just who she embodies, being a gay woman in the world, and the resilience of that, but also just her beautiful family. And I love how she highlights other artists. And
Oh,
again, she brought us Joni Mitchell
Joni,
back
yeah,
again, right?
yeah.
But
So
I think every show, it seems like she brings someone else on stage. I mean, not just her openers, but she really, I think, is looking at our past, and then who currently she can support for the future. And her High Women group, oh my goodness, I love that band and their album. So and how she wrote about her experience. So anyway, yeah, she's one that I definitely pay
yeah,
attention to.
yeah, me too. Her work with Joni Mitchell, I'll just be forever grateful for that, bringing her back to all of us. And I know you're doing some collaborations right now too. You're working with Danielle Anderson. We mentioned her earlier, and you guys have a concert coming up soon. And besides playing the concert together, are you working on songs together? Are there new songs coming from this collaboration?
Not yet, but what we're doing is learning some of each other's songs, and
Ah,
then we're going to play. Yeah, so that evening will be, I think, the 24th of September, at the Inner Urban Art, 23rd, Friday the 23rd, at the Inner Urban Art House. And so, yeah, we're going to be playing on each other's songs and then doing some songs together. So nothing original yet, but she is such a
so
joy.
that's Friday, September 23rd at the Inner Urban Art House, and you'll be doing a concert with Danielle Anderson, playing on each other's tunes, collaborating. That's going to be a really special night. What else do you have coming up in September? Because I think you're pretty busy this month.
Yeah, this is a crazy month. All those festivals, right, that are outside that we love so much. I'm doing Bloody Mary Morning. I am so honored to be doing that. My friend Christine Brocksterman on cello will join me at Mike Kelly's. That's
Fun.
the 3rd, in the morning. Come on over for a Bloody Mary. And so I'm playing the Spinach Festival, the Overland Park Fall Festival, I think the Independence Wine Festival, going up to a show in Des Moines, and house concert in Minnesota. So yeah, it's a busy month.
Yeah, you'll be on the radio too with Tasty Brew, I think, this month as well, doing some more interviewing. That's really great.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
speaking of festivals, I meant to ask you earlier, am I reading this right, that you are a 10-time Walnut Valley Festival, and for those you might know it better as Winfield, New Song Showcase winner? 10
Yeah,
times?
yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Congratulations. I mean,
Thank you.
wow, I'm very impressed.
Thank you. That was my first sort of recognition that I could write, that my songs were of note. So I'm very grateful for that opportunity. So yeah, I would enter every year, and haven't the past few years, but that was such an important thing. And then you get to go on stage and play the song for everyone. So yeah, it was important for me.
Well, congratulations. That is quite an accomplishment. Well, we're coming to the end of our time. I want you to tell us anything else that you'd like to, that we've forgotten, any other performances or anything that you'd like to tell our Heartland Song Network folks.
Well, first of all, I want to thank the board of Heartland Song Network, including you, Erin, and everyone who worked so hard to support all of us in the Midwest, and appreciate so much the opportunities. And I encourage everybody to get more involved in the Heartland Song Network. And just in general, we have just such a great community here, I think.
We're very lucky.
Yes, yes. And I wanted to put a plug in for Artist Inc. as well. I just graduated from that program in March and April. And so I'm so grateful. I know Erin is a facilitator, and encourage all those artists out there to apply to be part of that program as well.
Artist Inc. is a development program that helps artists with the business side of their arts practice. So professional development, it really does help. And I think one thing I learned when I got out of my college with my degree is I knew how to be a theater actress, but I didn't know how to find work as an actress, and I think the musicians can't have that happens too. We study music, but we don't necessarily study business. And the truth of it is we are self-employed. And you're doing your own booking and all of those kinds of things. And so getting some business acumen can really help.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it was just, very instrumental for me. So yeah, thank you to all of you who put that on. So yeah, I'm trying to think of other things. So my website is joyzimmermanmusic.com, and I have a Patreon page, and I'm active on Facebook and Instagram. I do What's Up Wednesdays on Wednesday. I started during the pandemic. I did an original song from a different place in my house every week since we were all trapped inside. So Why Be Normal happened in the shower, and Warranty happened in the garage. And so now it's morphed into other things, but that's a way to check out what I do. I have a blog and et cetera, et cetera. So
one more time, your website.
joyzimmermanmusic.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Joy. I'm looking forward to seeing your shows this month and to hearing some of the new music that you're writing. So I'm a big fan.
Thank you, Erin. And I am of yours as well. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.